This is A Rude Awakening. I'm Sabrina Jacobs. On today's show, an update on the Sable offshore offensive off the coast of Santa Barbara from the Center for Biological Diversity's Senior Oceans campaigner, Brady Bradshaw. We'll switch gears and speak to Tufts University research fellow Timothy A. Wise on the latest attempt by Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa to expunge their true character from the internet. But first, the news.
I'm Max Pringle with these headlines. Israel has launched a new wave of strikes and says its attacks on Iran will escalate and expand. The threat today comes after President Trump claimed talks on ending the war were going well and gave Tehran more time to open the Strait of Hormuz, something that Iran has denied. Charles de Ledesma has more.
Israel's military says it's conducted a wave of strikes in the heart of Tehran, while smoke was seen billowing in the Beirut skyline after President Donald Trump delayed his threat to hit Iran's energy plants over the effective closure of the Strait of Hormuz. Israel has moved thousands of troops across the border into Lebanon, where Israeli officials say they want to take control of the entire area south of the Litani River, some 20 miles north of the border. Meanwhile, Israel says phone calls between the Foreign Minister Badr Abdelati and his Turkish and Pakistani counterparts focused on intense efforts for direct talks between the US and Iran. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
A House panel has found that Florida Democratic Congresswoman Sheila Cherfilus McCormick committed dozens of ethics violations. More from Jennifer King.
Congressional investigators say a probe found 27 ethics violations, and the Florida Democrat commingled campaign personal and family business funds. Senior Committee Counsel Sidney Beller.
The respondent has attempted time and again to circumvent the laws and ethical standards to which she is subject.
Cherfilus McCormick is also pleading not guilty to federal charges for allegedly conspiring to steal and launder millions in COVID-19 disaster relief, mistakenly paid to a company owned by her family. Her counsel, William Barzee, says she earned every penny.
It was money that was legally obligated to be paid to her as part of the profit-sharing agreement.
Prosecutors say the money was routed through multiple accounts to disguise its source and spent on her campaign and a flashy diamond ring. Jennifer King, Washington.
Nepal's youngest prime minister has taken the oath of office today after his party won a landslide victory in elections earlier this month. It also comes months after a youth-led uprising that toppled the government. 35-year-old Balendra Shah was appointed prime minister by President Ram Chandra Paudel today after his Rashtriya Swartara party won nearly two-thirds of the seats in the House of Representatives in the March 5th election. Shah now leads a government tasked with navigating deep public frustration with Nepal's established parties, who were widely blamed by voters for corruption and chronic political instability. Secretary of State Marco Rubio will be in France today to meet with G7 leaders and try and drum up support for the U.S.-Israeli war with Iran. U.S. allies have been highly skeptical of the war, Sagar Magani reports.
Rubio will be at a G7 meeting in France for talks focused on the Middle East, Russia's war in Ukraine, and other threats. Nearly all other G7 members have reacted coolly to the Iran war and are not participating. President Trump has alternately lashed out.
We don't need anybody.
And said it would be nice if they would take part in helping reopen the Strait of Hormuz.
You need a lot of help.
Some G7 and NATO nations have indicated a willingness recently to back appropriate action for restoring the waterway to normal operations. Sagar Magani, Washington.
The World Health Organization and a senior aid official say more than 2 million people in Sudan's Darfur region have been left without proper medical care after a drone strike last week took a major hospital out of service. The strike, blamed on the military, killed 70 people and wrecked Al Dain Teaching Hospital, which had served people across the province of East Darfur. Satellite imagery released this week showed extensive damage to the hospital. WHO warns some patients now travel about 100 miles for referral care. Sudan's war has repeatedly hit health facilities. The army has denied targeting the hospital. The army has been fighting a rebel militia known as the Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, since 2023. The conflict has displaced some 14 million people, killed tens of thousands, and has left about half the population food insecure, creating what the UN calls the world's worst humanitarian crisis. The Treasury Department plans to print President Trump's signature on every new U.S. paper bill. Treasury announced the idea Thursday. Treasury said it would mark the first time a sitting president's signature appears on new currency. The announcement is part of a broader push to put Trump's name and image on public symbols. Treasury also backs a separate effort for a Trump coin. Earlier this month, a federal arts commission approved a design for a gold commemorative coin with his face. Mortgage rates shot up this week in the U.S. to their highest level in half a year. That could put a damper on home purchases this spring. Alex Vega has more.
Mortgage rates keep climbing. Mortgage buyer Freddie Mac says the average rate on a 30-year mortgage rose this week to just under 6.4%. That's the highest level in more than 6 months. Only 4 weeks ago, the average rate had dropped to its lowest level in 3.5 years at just below 6%. When mortgage rates rise, they drive up borrowing costs for home buyers. While still down from a year ago, the recent rise in mortgage rates threatens to dampen the spring home buying season. I'm Alex Vega.
Millions of people around the country are expected to turn out Saturday for No Kings rallies. The flagship will be in Minnesota, where rock star Bruce Springsteen is expected to perform his new protest song, Streets of Minneapolis. President Trump's immigration crackdown and the deaths of 2 Minnesotans at the hands of federal immigration officers earlier this year has had tensions high in that state. The rally is part of a nationwide series of more than 3,100 planned events in communities large and small in all 50 states that are expected to draw millions of people. Rallies are also planned in more than a dozen other countries to protest President Trump's policies. Partly sunny today in the San Francisco Bay Area, highs around 80, lows tonight in the 40s. In the Central Valley, partly sunny, highs in the 80s, lows tonight in the 50s. Those are the headlines. I'm Max Pringle on KPFA.
Welcome back. We are back. This is A Rude Awakening. I'm Sabrina Jacobs. And here is some breaking news, folks. Now, as some of you might already know, last week the Texas-based Sable Offshore Corporation restarted its Santa Ynez unit off the coast of Santa Barbara, and this is the same pipeline that ruptured and caused one of California's largest oil spills on the Santa Barbara coast in 2015. Now, this week, so here's the breaking part, California Attorney General Rob Bonta, on behalf of the state of California, announced a new lawsuit against the Trump administration challenging the U.S. Department of Energy. Secretary Chris Wright's quote, pipeline capacity, prioritization, and allocation order. So here's my short discussion with senior oceans campaigner at the Center for Biological Diversity, Brady Bradshaw. We're going to listen to Brady briefly describe this latest development.
The state said the Trump administration has unlawfully used the Defense Production Act to restart the pipelines that are within state jurisdiction. So the state is calling this out, and they're seeking relief from this. They're going to court with the Trump administration and with Sable, and we see the actions of the Trump administration as an abuse of power, and as a dire warning for the rest of the country that this administration could try to take even more actions like this that take away states' abilities to protect their own environments from oil and gas. So California is taking legal action in several ways. One is this is a big one. This is the challenge to the use of the Defense Production Act from the California Attorney General. California State Parks has also ordered Sable to remove the pipelines from Gaviota State Park unless the company comes back into compliance with state law. And Sable has already informed state parks that they have no intention of doing that. So, State Parks has ordered the removal. And what I'm seeing is state agencies are taking a comprehensive look right now at their legal options to bring this company back into compliance with state laws. It's every day it operates, it's a massive risk to California's coasts and our marine wildlife and our communities. So we hope that that California will succeed, and we agree that this is a disgusting abuse of power and that this kind of action can't stand. And we especially hope that it doesn't get repeated and used in California and in other states to take away states' ability to regulate their own oil and gas industry in defense of their special places. There's a massive proposal to expand offshore drilling off of California's coast and several other coastlines right now. But it's really important that California puts a stake in the ground right now and says, this is a line that should not have been crossed. We know that there have been, the company has accessed the pipeline. There have been work crews. We don't have real transparency about is how much the existing kind of underlying corrosion issue has been addressed. The company has not been extremely forthcoming with that information, and several state agencies have tried to seek additional information from Sable about where and when they're conducting their work. There were several cease and desist orders from the California Coastal Commission because in order to even conduct that repair work, Sable needed to have applied for a development permit, or it's called a coastal development permit. They did not. They received several cease and desist orders from the Coastal Commission, ended up with an $18 million fine, and also a court injunction against them, preventing them from continuing to go into the coastal zone and dig up land and remove native vegetation and do their work and heavy construction in areas that are sensitive environments, which includes the Gaviota State Park, which is in the coastal zone. On top of that, they did not have the permission to conduct the work in state parks because they did not have an easement. And now, State Parks has even ordered them to remove the pipeline. So, what we know is that CAL FIRE has said additional repairs are needed before restart can happen. And that was when this was under California's jurisdiction. And then, for Trump to come in and just write that off and shrug that off is a huge problem.
In January, Claire Wilmot, an investigative journalist, revealed a network of communications specialists hired by powerful actors to edit away criticisms of their clients on their pages on Wikipedia, the world's largest encyclopedia seeking to publish unbiased information. Among the culprits were the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, known as AGRA, and its chief sponsor, the Gates Foundation. Now, the article published is entitled AGRA Exposed for Censoring Criticism of its Green Revolution. One of the main components of the greenwashed edited version that was erased on Wikipedia is critical research that Timothy A. Wise, a research fellow at Tufts University, revealed. And here to talk about that very important piece, that very important component, is Timothy A. Wise. Welcome back, Timothy. Thank you so much for being on A Rude Awakening once again.
Thanks, Sabrina. It's great to be with you again.
All right. So we've had many a conversation about AGRA and its greenwashing and the bad information, the alternative facts information that's been spread since they started back in 2006. Talk to us about, or give us a background on AGRA and the Gates Foundation and what they've been doing throughout Africa.
Yeah, I mean, the Alliance for Green Revolution in Africa was founded by Gates and the Rockefeller Foundation with support from USAID and a few other bilateral donors to supposedly catalyze a productivity revolution, in their words, in for 30 million small scale farmers across Africa in 13 focus countries. And they did that. We're going to do that by doing what the first Green Revolution in Asia and Latin America had done, which is put commercial seeds, improved high yield seeds, and in the hands of farmers and give them the fertilizer or sell them the fertilizer and other chemicals to do more industrialized style monocrop farming. And that largely failed, which is what I saw in my research for my book, Eating Tomorrow, as I went around several countries in Africa and just saw a real failure to yield on the part of that strategy for a whole variety of reasons. But when I went back in 2020 and did a more thorough assessment, because neither the Gates Foundation nor AGRA had really done any kind of evaluation of its own impacts in any systematic way, despite it being a $1 billion initiative by that point. I found that they really hadn't catalyzed any kind of productivity revolution. Yields had not grown very fast. Incomes had not grown, and hunger, instead of going down by 50%, which is what they had set as a goal, had gone up by 50%. So, just failure on every measure. And what caught my attention about this article about Wikipedia in this investigation was that Agra and Gates, well, we don't know which one actually, somebody paid PR professionals to go in and take out those kind of critical studies like mine off of Agra's Wikipedia page to make it look better.
Oh my goodness. My goodness. It's to me it seems like they're really showing their hand that they're how desperate they are to control the narrative because they know it's so bad.
Yeah,
Uh
I mean,
and
the thing that's so frustrating to people like me who, as a researcher, and to African civil society groups who work on food sovereignty and really would like to see better productivity, would like to see increased food production, is that instead of changing their policies and their approaches because they aren't working, they just try to burnish their images by this kind of misinformation.
mhm, mhm. Most definitely. And yeah, just I need to let folks know that you are the author. Along with being a researcher, Timothy A. Wise, you're an author. You have two books that are out: "Eating Tomorrow: Agribusiness, Family Farmers, and the Battle for the Future of Food." And is there another one? I thought there was another
Yeah,
one.
I did an earlier book called Confronting Globalization on Mexico.
Okay, and confronting globalization in Mexico. So you're no lightweight. You're a research fellow at Tufts University. You know this information, and you've had your information or your research checked, double checked, quadruple checked 10 times over. So it's information that can be trusted, that should be trusted. So, what sorts of changes did these paid PR professionals make? It's my understanding it's a British organization or company called Portland Communications. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's a British company founded the years ago by the person who, until recently, until the Epstein scandal took him down, was Prime Minister Keir Starmer's communications head in the British government. But
Oh,
earlier, he came out of this Portland Communications, and what the investigation showed and revealed by a pretty detailed, it sounded like a pretty complicated. Claire Wilmot, the journalist who did it, said it was a year and a half piece of research, it wasn't a short thing, was they started talking to former Portland communications employees about whether they had been employed to work on Wikipedia pages, and
Mm.
she'd heard complaints about meddling in Wikipedia pages. Wikipedia prohibits the editing. It's open editing on Wikipedia.
Mm-hmm.
So anyone could go in and sign up as an editor and submit edits, but you're supposed to disclose any conflict of interest you have being from the organization that's being written about or working for an organization on behalf of the organization being written about. So these kind of changes are direct violations of Wikipedia policies. And because of the suspicious edits, she was able to go through and the contacts with former Portland employees. She was able to identify a subcontractor, Web3 it was called, which was contracted by Portland to make these changes on behalf of Portland, probably to add a layer of secrecy and deniability for Portland, saying so they can say we didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Already you have Agra and Gates able to say we didn't do it. These PR professionals did, I guess, and now another layer with Web3 being the ones to make the changes. But she identified one guy who was managing a series of so-called sock puppet email accounts, basically fake email accounts that could go on to Wikipedia disguised as real people and not with no conflict of interest, supposedly, and make changes to pages that were relevant to their clients. And the clients weren't just Gates and Agra. The government of Qatar, in the time of the World Cup,
Mm-hmm.
when there was all the scandals about human rights abuses of immigrant workers in the construction of stadiums and facilities for the World Cup, paid Portland Communications to launder out the records of its human rights abuses. There
Mm.
were a couple of other clients they identified besides Gates and Agra, but these caught my attention obviously because of my work on Agra. And what they would do is, and so they were able to identify all of these fake accounts, probably 20 or more of them, that were showing up as making pretty clearly self-interested changes in the Wikipedia pages. I mean, some of them were pretty blatant, and
Mm-hmm.
they took out an entire section of the Wikipedia page that existed that said it called evaluations that included my study, and substituted some set of publications produced by Agra as in their place. They took out what references to criticisms that had been made by the Alliance for Food Sovereignty in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
They just deleted an entire evaluation section in another spot.
Wow.
They deleted a critique section in another spot, and so the Claire Wilmot kind of flagged these and traced the editors to these sock puppet accounts. Wikipedia is remarkable because it's
Mm-hmm.
so transparent. And I'd encourage anyone who listens to this to try this. Go to any Wikipedia page. I mean, go to the Agra page if you want. And up on the top right, there's a button that says History. You click on History and you get a log of every change ever made to that page. And you
Wow.
click on the log and you can go to, I think you click on Previous next to it, and it'll show what change was made by that editor.
Mm.
And you can see, and so I went through, after she did this, I went through, it's like, really? You can just look at it? And it's like, yeah, you can see. You
Mm-hmm.
can see, and some of them are just ham-handed image laundering, just like they really, they tried to paste in, like, it looked like brochure material from Agra's webpage. It's like,
Wow.
which Wikipedia editors, again, to their credit, they are trying hard to both track these kind of sock puppet interventions and keep them from happening, but they're also trying to prevent, like, I think the story was, in this case, the sock puppets were using different IP addresses, so they weren't doing it all from the same computer same
Interesting.
time, so that, because that would have raised a red flag to Wikipedia editors. And again,
Wow. Mhm,
Wikipedia's credit, as soon
mhm,
as the British investigative journalism outfit published this study,
mhm.
Wikipedia took out all those changes that that these paid professionals had put in.
Wow, this just reeks of Analytica. Cambridge Analytica. Oh goodness,
Absolutely.
the
Yeah.
2016 of U.S. elections. My goodness. Well, we gotta definitely, definitely give it to the Bureau of Investigative Journalism over there in the UK for doing what they did, and I just want to reiterate what this means because the research that you did, Tim, it's so important because it affects lives. What Agra is doing and trying to falsely report on is they're affecting the lives of the smallholder farmers, the small farmers, those family farms that people rely on for in order to live and to feed their families and to feed their communities. The false information that's being put out about the yields, how much they're able to grow by incorporating all of these techno fixes and forgetting about uh, tilling the land and taking care of the land in an agroecological way, which is the correct way, right? Contributing to biodiversity, contributing to the soil being healthy, and so on and so forth. They are affecting the lives of Africans. And it's 13, 14 countries. So they are desperate to try and pull in more countries within the global south to basically rob and pillage these poor people, just these folks that are just trying to live their lives, just trying to live their lives.
I mean, it's one thing for a company, a private company, to engage in nefarious activities to burnish its image, and you kind of expect that, right? That they're going
Right.
to go after their critics. And but these are
Mm.
public nonprofits, and this is the Gates Foundation. It's supposed to be a
Right.
foundation operating in the public interest and working on solving global problems. And AGRA is a international nonprofit. It's not. It really should be accountable to the public, and it
Mm.
should be accountable um, to African farmers and organizations. And they've been African groups have been demanding for years and years that they change their policies, and they get nowhere. They hardly get a hearing.
Jeez. Yeah. Well, it did get kind of close as far as taking down Agra. Uh, what was that? That was 2 years ago when it actually went to Congress through the USAID aid because they were the Gates Foundation, which is Agra, again, Alliance for Green Revolution in Africa. They were getting money from the American taxpayers and still putting out and still publishing the greenwashed information on their websites and wherever they can spread it far and wide. And here they are attacking Wikipedia. Let's see here.
No, I mean,
So
the thing that's demoralizing about it all is
sure.
that
Hmm.
it's you kind of expect, and the Gates Foundation in particular, I think is an egregious example of this, is they
Hmm.
spend so much time making themselves sound like they are data driven and focusing on
Right.
what works to end poverty and reduce hunger and increase rights of women and all this other stuff. And so here they have data that shows them very clearly to not be achieving the goals that they've set for themselves and for pretty obvious reasons. And instead of changing course like African farm groups have demanded, they hire some PR guy to go and take the criticism off the Agra Wikipedia page. It's really uh, there really has to be more accountability than that.
No doubt, no doubt. So let's move on here. Now, as far as Wikipedia is concerned, why is Wikipedia a target for such image laundering attacks? I mean, you've got, take it back again to Cambridge Analytica and how they just went in and manipulated anything and everything on Facebook wherever they could, and it seems like it's the same type of attack with the sock puppet sock puppets. It's the same type of attack with these sock puppet characters. um why is Wikipedia a target, do you think?
I think, and this is the point that Claire Wilmot makes in her article and explains it in some detail, is that with the rise of AI
Hmm.
being used in many ways, I don't know about driving search engines like Google, but certainly having a very prominent place on searches on Google. Um, the AI is scraping data from every source it can find, and it's trying to put those nice little summaries at the top of your
Hmm.
of your searches.
Right, yeah.
And they're scraping. Wikipedia is one of the main sources they scrape from. So what ends up in that AI search result is often has a lot that was on the Wikipedia that comes from the Wikipedia page, say for a search for the Alliance for Green Revolution in Africa.
Mhm.
And so that caught the attention of the powers that be to say, wait, if these criticisms are going to show up right at the top, in the AI search results, let's get them off of Wikipedia. And so that makes Wikipedia a target because it's so, it's already producing a summary of something. So that's useful for AI, which is trying to do the same. It's also um, has a pretty good reputation for reliability because of the nature of its open sourced and
Mhm.
what not not completely rigorously fact checked, but very closely monitored content. So, and well resourced, referenced content. And so AI relies on it, and the powers that be want to fix what it says.
Right, try to control that narrative. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's pretty interesting because when I was getting my bachelor's, Wikipedia was just a baby. It was Babypedia, right? And so, uh, in your opinion, how does Wikipedia try to defend the integrity of its content, or from your research into this situation here? How does Wikipedia try to defend the integrity of its content? Do you think that they are successful? Seems like they are still pretty successful. Go ahead, Timothy.
I think it varies a lot how the level of success. I mean, the vastness of the Wikipedia enterprise
Mhm.
um, means that they cannot have an editor monitoring every single change ever made on any page all over that encyclopedia. It's in 5 languages, I think now,
Mhm.
and but they do have these conflict of interest rules about editing. They're staffed is a is a loose term because it's volunteer, a lot of volunteer editors
Well,
take
moderated.
responsibility for certain pages and certain topics.
Mhm.
And what Claire Wilmot told me is that they spend a lot of time making sure that high traffic pages are not being hacked because The high traffic pages are the ones that are the most subject to those kinds of attacks, but also um, ones that Wikipedia wants to make sure are right. They said she thought that or maybe someone told Claire Wilmot that the Agra page is not a high traffic site. And so it's not going to get the same level of day-to-day scrutiny that say a site like the Gates Foundation would get. Um, and so she thought that led to some more vulnerabilities and how some of this stuff could have snuck through. But again, they do have kind of these conflict of interest um, rules of engagement with for anyone seeking to edit, and they spotted, suspicious edits. They slapped at one point they slapped a little banner on the top of the page saying this page has problems. It seems to have been edited by paid editors in violation of our terms of agreement. So they'll put a little warning sign when they spot something, and then they'll try and clean up what's left. And like I said, when they got the information from this investigation, they immediately undid all the edits um,
Wow.
that were incorrect, and they have they kind of have an internal system for grading the quality of the different sites for thoroughness and being well sourced. And the Agra page is like a starter page on their grades. Like it's not well done because of the hacking that's been going on, and they say that sort of upfront. I think where they where Wikipedia has a harder time defending itself is on lower traffic sites. I know that, for example, US Right to Know has said that it's very, that because they're putting up stuff that's critical of industry, that they're constantly subject uh, um,
Greenwashing.
to people coming in and trying to manipulate change the content on their Wikipedia page. And as a small organization, they don't have a communications team that can spend a lot of time um, monitoring the Wikipedia page. So it's difficult. I mean, I think I used the word kind of this, they revealed a tip of the iceberg. There's clearly lots of money and power out there to pay people to go in and try to evade Wikipedia's editing restrictions and hack the site for their purposes. And it's a problem.
Right.
It's a problem.
No doubt, no doubt. So the big question is here, Timothy A. Wise, how did Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa and the Gates Foundation respond to being caught red-handed manipulating Agra's Wikipedia page? How did they, what was their response to all that?
I mean, I Claire Wilmot in her research tried to get responses and couldn't get responses from hardly any of the guilty parties. That seemed a policy, that's been my experience with the Gates Foundation. They're not going to respond
Right.
to any criticism in the media. I followed up and got a response from the Gates Foundation, which said simply the Gates Foundation was not involved in any effort to edit Wikipedia pages related to Agra. She never was able to determine, Claire Wilmot, whether it was the Gates contract or the Agra contract with Portland Communications that resulted in the changes. But when I asked Agra, I got a long, drawn out denial of responsibility there too. Just saying, in spite of the evidence being right there, I mean, I was asking them, okay, look, here's the change that was made. it was clearly in Agra's interest to have that change made, and Claire Wilmot just showed that it was a paid contractor who did it. Are you saying that who did it? You know, are you going to acknowledge responsibility for this? And neither one of them would acknowledge responsibility, which is again totally typical of my dealings with both the Gates Foundation and Agra, that they just are neither one's ready to take responsibility for its actions.
It is so sad. They what's the phrase? Coattail and run.
Yeah.
It's just it. I mean, every single time. Now, you and I have been talking about Agra for years now. It's been years. It's been at least what, 5, 6 years now.
Yep.
It's been a minute. It's been a minute, and it's the same thing, same action, same reaction, same action of telling falsehoods, same reaction of telling more falsehoods, greenwashing the whole thing. Now, Agro removed Green Revolution, quote, Green Revolution, that particular phrase from its name after all the criticism. So they did go through a name change, and that's from all the criticism from African organizations. And now they've got a new president of formerly known as Agra, I guess we should be saying. So, is there any sign, Timothy, that they are changing their approach? They've got new leadership, they've got new folks in there. There's new blood running through their veins. Hopefully, it's or so it's so we're told. But are they still employing the same tactics of lying? Go ahead.
Well, they definitely shifted gears. I'm not sure they shifted directions, unfortunately. They shifted gears by kind of getting out of the business of promoting direct farmer use of fertilizers and started focusing more on getting policies changed in African governments that would speed the adoption of Green Revolution inputs, seeds and fertilizers and the rest, and kind of help push African governments toward industrialized agriculture systems, monocrops of corn and rice and whatever, and fed by chemicals. Um, that's still the Green Revolution, and they're still, working behind the scenes more to promote that and those approaches. They have done work on their narratives so that they talk about needing a food systems approach. So they're not as mechanistically, seeds and fertilizers change everything. They will throw out words like regenerative agriculture. They'll even occasionally throw out words like agroecology. But the experience that the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, the Alliance for Food Sovereignty in Africa have seen in countries they work in is that agri operatives are not favorable at all to agroecology initiatives and are still pushing governments to adopt these very narrow modernizing strategies for agriculture that really sideline small scale farmers. I wrote about one of those in Zambia that was just shocking. They do 5-year programs, and the Zambian government does for agricultural development. And they were at the end of one and were ready to start a new one. And the Zambian civil society organizations had pointed out many of the shortcomings of the kind of agri-focused, agri-friendly previous setup, and the government was taking input from them and was, considering changes, and in swoops an agri consultant and an FAO consultant, Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN, and kind of takes the draft that they'd all been working on off the table, substitutes a new one, and the government adopts an entirely um, new agricultural development plan, kind of written by consultants,
What?
hired guns sent in to promote industrial agriculture.
Oh my gosh. That only happened in Zambia, right? There's
Well,
been.
I don't think it only happens in Zambia, but that was very well documented because they had this,
Mhm,
I was in touch with some of the organizations that had been,
mhm.
for years advocating for change, and we're seeing an opportunity to get some shifts in the practice, and then suddenly they go to a meeting and here's the new strategy, folks. It's not the one you've been talking about, and that's what we're going to do, and that's what got passed.
Oh, that is so sad to hear.
It is.
That is a sad state of affairs. Because again, folks, we're talking about people who they're small scale farmers, they're family farmers. We're not talking folks that are farming for 20, 50, 30, 80 acres of land. Just small plots of land that they're dealing with, and the aggregates come swooping in and just takes over, and they end up depending on agra. They end up owing money because they can't produce on the scale that they need to. They're not producing at all in some cases. This is absolutely pathetic. And these techno fixes, these band-aids that don't even need to exist, that are pushing these small scale farmers into foregoing and forgetting and just pushing away from agroecology. They're suffering for it. They're suffering for it. Again, we're talking 13, 14 countries in Africa that are suffering because of agra's efforts. And so are African groups still calling for change? These civil society groups, they're still pushing
Oh
to
yeah,
push
yeah,
agra
pushing
out, right?
hard. Yeah,
Mhm.
pushing hard, and I have to say, in spite of these headwinds, they made progress in a lot of places.
That's wonderful to hear.
Yeah, I mean, it's partly because the model is so flawed, the Green Revolution model, and so it really fails to deliver. And so, unless governments have huge amounts of money to subsidize their farmers to adopt these policies that are not, or these approaches that are not really yielding results, um, everybody is looking for alternatives, and there are alternatives. So, the Food Sovereignty Alliance has a bunch of different affiliates doing in Kenya. Kenya, they have an interesting opening because a decentralization move on the part of the government gave counties in Kenya um, the ability to develop their own agricultural approaches and plans. And so there have been changes made at the local level favoring agroecological farming and disfavoring um, green revolution approaches. And again, you get the reports that Agra is trying to control that and stop it from happening, but they can't stop it everywhere. And so there's definite progress. And some national governments in Africa, even ones that have worked with Agra, on the side, they've also been lobbied heavily to start promoting ecological agriculture and develop plans that you know here we are with the war in Iran driving up fertilizer prices globally. Uh,
Right.
we already experienced that with the Ukraine war and the pandemic, and fertilizer prices went through the roof.
Right.
The There's a real incentive on the part of a lot of governments and others to decrease their dependence on imported fertilizer. And one way to do that is through ecological farming. And so the government of Ethiopia has now adopted a big supporter of the Green Revolution in a lot of ways, has adopted a program for promoting ecological agriculture also. Um,
Mhm.
so it's a little contradictory, but it's also a sign that they know that what they're doing isn't really working, particularly for the smallest scale farmers.
No, no, it's definitely not working. They know it's not working. And I tell you,
I mean,
it's
the most dramatic of the of
mhm.
the it's not working and are, sort of groups calling for change is the Southern Africa Faith Communities Environment Institute, a coalition of faith leaders in the region. It has an active call and a letter going out to the Gates Foundation demanding reparations for the damages caused by its green revolution.
Wow.
Reparations. And what reparations would look like is, in their mind, would
Mhm.
is pay the same kind of money you paid for to destroy our communities and our food systems. You pay that same kind of money to restore them and promote ecological agriculture. That's again, that has not gotten a favorable response from the Gates Foundation, as you can imagine, but they're um, still pushing that demand. But again, reparations for Green Revolution harm is a very dramatic call to make
Mhm.
for something that was supposed to be an aid to farmers, right?
Mhm, mhm. Most definitely, most definitely. Well, it's a big lie, and to have this lie revealed once again, I mean, whatever it takes to save lives, because that's what this comes down to. Whatever it takes to save lives, because what Agra is doing is they are ruining lives. They are ultimately killing people. It's not. This isn't. This is to him. It's a game. To Bill Gates, it's a game. To folks like him of his ilk, this is a game. But we're talking about lives here, African lives. It has to stop somewhere. So with all of this, with organizations that are pushing back from civil society, um, these governments, they seem so complicit. There was an issue earlier this year, end of last year, I think it was December, January, in Kenya, with the seeds, with their seeds, with the heirloom seeds that a lot of the farmers have, and making it illegal, not illegal. So they're still going back and forth. The small scale farmers are still going back and forth with the government. Uh, just they're trying to make sure it's okay for them to plant these seeds that have been in their families for millennia. So with that, where are you seeing as far as the African governments? It seems to me from what you're saying, Tim, that they are being paid off. They're being pacified in some kind of way to step aside and let Agra come in and take over.
Yeah, it's not just, and that's not just Agra. That's just the larger
Sure,
development financing
sure, multinational
system.
corporations, right?
Probably the biggest Green Revolution funder in terms of actual money being put into these kind of programs is now the African Development Bank,
Mm,
which has picked up where Agra has sort of lagged with its failures and its weakened reputation. And so there's a whole African Union infrastructure that's supposedly trying to support um, what they call comprehensive African agricultural development, and has that framework is where a lot of the battles take place over whether that's going to just mean green revolution seeds and fertilizers, or is it going to mean something more inclusive and low input and ecological. And
mhm,
groups like the Alliance for Food Sovereignty in Africa are at those tables trying to lobby um, for programs that are much more ecological in nature. But again, that's a battle, and government by government. And in Africa, you see hints of openings to ecological agriculture, but you also see that they know where their bread is buttered in terms of development finance, and they definitely don't want to be um, pissing off the Bill Gates of the world or the financiers in the African Development Bank.
Indeed, indeed. So there's the African Union. Oh goodness. Okay, so it's the African Union Development. So they're
Yeah, I mean, the other big factor is that one of the main ways that national governments have supported the Green Revolution is by subsidizing the use of commercial seeds and fertilizers for maize, corn mainly, for farmers. And that's turned out to be a real political, it's gotten very politicized in the sense that, if you have an election coming up and you want to make farmers vote for you, you increase the subsidies to the farmers, even if they aren't really producing what they're supposed to be producing in the way they're supposed to be producing them. If you give poor people things for free, they accept them.
Right. Yeah, just exploiting that desperation.
Yeah.
To the nth degree. So, with all of this, with your blood, sweat, and tears in the form of that report or the reporting that you've done, the research that you've done, I should say, just pulling the veil off of what AGRA is really about, the Gates Foundation is really about, having that information removed from the Wikipedia page, and just all the effort that you've made in the last 6, 7 years, 20 years, 30 years.
Right.
It's been a lifelong
honestly,
thing.
I appreciate that, Sabrina, because I have to say, for all the backsliding and the failure to see meaningful commitments to change on the part of the powers that be, things have changed to some extent. I mean, I never would have thought that when I started doing this research and writing about this, that AGRA would remove the words Green Revolution from its name, would run from the association with the Green Revolution. The Green Revolution was this shibboleth out there in Iowa. It's the monument to Norman Borlaug and his Green Revolution, and that's how India saved itself, and all this mythology that's been created. I would not have thought that those donors and to AGRA would have been so spooked by our critiques and African farmers' critiques of the Green Revolution that they would run away from the name. And now we got to get them to run away from the policies.
All pertinent links will be on the show description page for A Rude Awakening at kpfa.org. Thank you for listening.
We've been here before. We've covered the last 2 No Kings protests, and this year, we're going bigger. On Saturday, March 28th, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., KPFA joins Pacifica stations across the country for a live, coordinated broadcast following the voices rising in the streets. With feeds from New York, D.C., Minneapolis, and San Francisco, and reports from across the Bay and around the nation, this is real-time coverage of a movement unfolding. KPFA's own The Flash Onda crew will be live on the ground from the No King stage in San Francisco, bringing you the voices straight from the front lines. And from 5 to 6 p.m., Dennis Bernstein and Miguel Gavilan Molina bring it home with a powerful wrap-up of the day. The word on the streets? We don't do kings. March 28th, live, only on KPFA.
Our 77th birthday celebrations begin with Sabroso, a benefit dance event for KPFA, on Friday, March 27th from 8 p.m. to 1 a.m. at La Peña Cultural Center, 3105 Shattuck Avenue in Berkeley. Hosted and emceed by Con Sabor's Luis Medina, with 2 live music sets by Julio Bravo y Sal Sabor, DJ El de la Clave, a dance performance by Rueda con Ritmo, and a salsa dance lesson by Felipe Martinez. More information at kpfa.org/events.
The following is brought to you by no one trying to sell you anything. This is 94.1 KPFA, 89.3 KPFB in Berkeley, 88.1 KFCF in Fresno, and online everywhere. Tell a friend at kpfa.org.